In 7 seconds, I found out this week as I was doing what I do best, spending time on the internet, doing nothing. I read an article that in those 7 seconds, a first impression can be made. So I asked my husband, Dave, in 7 seconds, what impression would an audience have of me? And he said words like confident and strong and positive. And as flattering as those words are, those words don't tell my story. In 7 seconds, I can say things to you like postpartum depression, anxiety, coma, ICU psychosis, postpartum psychosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, autism. Those words, they tell a story, and those words can impact everyone in this audience. I've been through hell, and I've come back again. In 14 years, I hit rock bottom 11 times. And rock bottom comes in all shapes and sizes. None of us have a pill that we can take that will protect us from hitting rock bottom. And in living with purpose, that means navigating life's storms. So I look at it like this. When you hit a storm in your life, you have two options. Option A, stay in the storm. But let me warn you, if you stay in that storm, I fear that you will be full of bitterness. That why me attitude will lead to a lack of happiness and hopelessness. Or you could do option B, and that is build a catapult. And while you're there on rock bottom, wait until you're ready, because it's only your timing that can get you out. But use that catapult and allow that catapult to soar you beyond anything that you ever could imagine. In 2005, after the birth of our first daughter, I suffered from postpartum depression. Prior to that, a cliche was made up about me by my mom that stuck with me through life, that happiness was living through Kristi's body as she skipped her way through life. My skipping came to a screeching halt in that hospital room. The second I delivered, it was as if happy, hopeful, fun disappeared, and guilt, hopelessness, and anxiety took their place. Red flags and fireworks should have exploded in the operating room. The doctor said, "It's a girl." And the brand spanking new mom, instead of saying like, "Wow, that's awesome," I said, "Will you have me back in my room by 7 to watch American Idol?" Who does that? I just gave birth. But at that point, we weren't educated about postpartum depression. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of education now. So we found out that 1 in 7 women are affected. It's the second complication that women face after childbirth, yet we were thrown into this world that we were so unprepared for. So for me to explain to you what postpartum is like, I'm going to write a book. And I'm going to call it Kristi's Journey Through Postpartum Depression. And figuratively, go to the table of contents of that book. And I'll take you through each chapter, and that will give you a glimpse into what it's like to have postpartum depression. Chapter 1, when are the parents of this child going to pick it up? Chapter 2, I can't stand this baby. Chapter 3, why does my husband get to go to work? Chapter 4, we seriously have to move back in with my parents. Chapter 5, I can't be left unsupervised. Chapter 6, I don't want to get out of bed today. Chapter 7, I'm not eating. Chapter 8, I want to kill myself. Chapter 9, journey to the psych ward. Chapter 10, Karen Kleiman and the keys that the Postpartum Stress Center can give you towards recovery. So even though I had those keys, nothing was happening because those medications don't work quickly and everyone reacts so differently to them. My husband had to make a choice. I said scary words to him. I didn't want to live. He took me to Bryn Mawr Psychiatric Hospital and advocated for me in a way that no one has ever had to advocate for me before, because I could always do it for myself just fine. But at this point, I couldn't. And Dave realized that Bryn Mawr Hospital Psychiatric Ward wasn't the right place for a woman suffering from postpartum depression. And when I walked through those gates of hell and they asked me for my shoelaces, I just felt so defeated. I was only there to have a baby just a few short weeks before. I survived postpartum depression, but it affects a family, and it affects anyone, even someone like me who never had a day of depression. But I survived, and I watched Dave advocate, and I found purpose in that survival, because soon I would need to be an advocate. And Cameron was not reaching developmental milestones. I took Cameron to my pediatrician, and my pediatrician called me a crazy new mom overreacting. Yes, I was crazy, you were right about that, but I broke up with my pediatrician. Dave and I began this journey, and we thought 1 hour of PT a week, everything would be fine. 1 hour turned into 20, turned into a developmental pediatrician. When Cameron was 13 months old, Cameron was diagnosed with fine motor delays, gross motor delays, speech delays, ADHD, an intellectual disability, and autism. We hit rock bottom again. This time Dave was fully with me, but we didn't stay there long. But our rock bottom this time was different. It turned into hate. We hated kids' birthday parties. We hated family parties. We hated Halloween. We hated Easter egg hunts. We hated anything that involved kids that didn't have special needs. But we didn't stay in that place for long. We knew that we needed to go into action mode. And I remembered how he had advocated for me. So I catapulted myself out of rock bottom, and I became the best advocate I could for my daughter. I want to tell you that I never wanted to worry about Cameron's future. I turned that over to Jesus. I couldn't worry about the past because I went into action mode. I never visited the land of denial. All I could do was focus on the present. But the future, could I control the future? Timing would tell. Cameron's tenacity with all of her therapies was another seed planted and preparing me for what was to come soon in the next couple of years. In 2009, I began to like kids again, and with the help of Dave, I delivered our second daughter, Brinley. Brinley was the perfect baby. I think I was given that gift because Brinley was the only baby of mine that I ever held with love. Or even though I would go on to have 2 more kids, I never got to hold them until they were 4 months old. In 2011, my oxygen levels were very low. At Phoenixville Hospital, they made a decision to, through an emergency C-section, deliver Aubrey and Courtney. The next day, I went into cardiac arrest several times. I was medevaced by the amazing team at PennStar to the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, HUP, and I was placed on an ECMO machine. An ECMO machine has a 10% survival rate. I was on it for 28 days, and for those 28 days, while in a medically induced coma, the machine did the work of my heart and my lungs. Every other organ in my body had failed at that point. There were talks of transplants. There was talk of amputating my feet. And every morning, Dave started his day for 28 days with, "This might be the day that your wife doesn't make it." Miraculously, it made a comeback. And they're the words of the doctors. Doctors who often believe in science were calling this a miracle. And I was also given the nickname, the sickest person at HUP. I like to go big or go home. That is the truth. But when I woke up, I felt euphoric. And looking back, that's not a normal reaction. I didn't care about the babies. I didn't care about the missed time. Didn't really care about much. And then it all started to make sense. For 3 months after I woke up from being in a coma for 6 weeks, I suffered so bad with panic attacks. And that was just the beginning. My panic attacks would last for hours. And the only thing that I can compare it to is what it must feel like seconds before you are about to be killed. It was awful. I felt trapped. Unfortunately, even after being discharged, my panic attacks didn't go away. I went to Bryn Mawr Rehab, where I spent 5 days crying. On day 6, the panic attacks returned. Finally, I was discharged to home, where I would find comfort and everything would be okay again. But those panic attacks, now that I was in the safety of my home, they turned into a new superpower. I could hear voices. I could hear voices through walls, around corners. And this led to Dave and my parents making a decision to take me back to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, where I was admitted, but yet again, Dave advocated for me. I was in a wheelchair. I had a wound vac attached to my groin. When I wasn't in a wheelchair, I was walking with a cane, and I was having all of these symptoms of psychosis and anxiety, and no one could help me. All they did was they put me in a room that looked like a jail cell. After about several hours, they signed me out, my parents and Dave again, and I went home for one more day, spiked a fever, and returned by ambulance to HUP, where I spent another month and a half. By this point, not only could I hear things, I could see things too. But I was good. I was good at tricking the right people at the right time. And this second stay around, I was so sick. Again, I had pulmonary embolisms. I had a 22-pound hematoma on my stomach. And all I saw was death on the horizon. And all I saw was a way out. I'll never forget, one night, a nurse came in. Dave was sleeping. I was fake sleeping. And I looked up at the IV that she was about to hang and attach to the port in my arm. And I noticed that it was the drug that I'm severely allergic to, the drug that would completely suppress my immune system. And I was faced with a decision that once you're faced with a decision like this, you have no choice but to live a life of purpose. Do I let her give me that medication and end it all right now? Or do I stop her? I looked over at Dave. I looked at her. I grabbed her wrist. And I vowed that I was going to keep on fighting. Now, I didn't fight that well. I got home again, and this time, there was no signing me out of the hospital. Dave and my parents threw me into Dave's car and took me to Pennsylvania Hospital, where I would spend 10 days on the schizophrenic floor as they tried to figure out just what was wrong. They were the worst 10 days of my life. I did things that show you that mental illness can affect anyone. I intentionally peed myself just to make Dave mad. And I was there by myself, and I knew this time they needed to leave me there. I needed to get help. I would love to say that that's the place where I got my help, but it isn't. But we did get in touch with the best doctor, who took one look at me, and she said, "You have postpartum psychosis with ICU psychosis." And it all made sense. I wasn't attached to the babies. I wasn't sad that I wasn't with them, but no one else knew that. After that experience, I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder in 2016. That came in nightmares, in bedwetting, dreams that I was back at HUP, obsessive compulsive disorder, where I think I took, with the help of friends and family, 60 trash bags of stuff out of my house. Post-traumatic stress disorder affects 25% of women who go through something difficult. And again, I fell into that statistic. But when I suffered with post-traumatic stress disorder, it was different. I had a different battle to fight. I was stronger this time. I needed to fight this better, and I had Jesus on my side. So post-traumatic stress disorder changed the trajectory of my life. What I loved doing for so long as a teacher at Norristown High School no longer felt like it served my purpose. So my self-employed husband listened as I told him, tomorrow I am going into work and I'm going to resign, and the benefits that cover our family of 6 and my pension and my salary, we're just not going to have it anymore, and it's going to be all good. And you know what? I was right. God's plan and purpose for my life was so much bigger than I ever imagined. Because of that decision, we are now able to give back. And with one of my greatest friends, Misty Sincati, and my other friend, Janice Boscano, we started Coming Home with Grace. With the support of my husband, we are now at a time where we are able to give back and give families and the community the support that was given to us. I found out that our nonprofit became an official nonprofit in Pennsylvania on the day that my dad was in surgery for stage 4 glioblastoma this July. Excuse me. It was an unbelievable day, filled with such emotion. This past weekend, I got to spend the entire weekend with my dad. What a privilege. And you know what? I thanked God again that I was here, because I can serve him with the same eyes that my husband served me. And I can serve others through Coming Home with Grace and give back to the community in the same way that the community gave back to me. If I can live a life with purpose, I urge you, if you aren't already, you can too. Rock bottom. You don't have to stay there. There's a way out. And once you catapult your way out, you'll soar to the top. And I am proof of that.